Hello there, and as usual, I'm Aaron from Laststandgamers, and welcome. So today we're doing something a little bit different. Many of you have requested that I had a look at all the vehicles in the drone fleet currently. So this is exactly what we're doing. We've got the small rovers lined up, we've got the larger rovers lined up behind. We're going to have a quick look at them, explain the history, as well explain their sort of uses. Now, if we come over to this section first, we have our utility ships. First off, we have Finch's first little rover that had a little bit of an incident, and when it made its way back to the base without a turret, of course, Aaron took over it and he decided to install this welding front. And ever since this has been created, it's been used just to weld up floors, ramps, different things within the base, and it can do it quite effectively once it's loaded up with steel plates. Originally, there were some ideas to balance it out with some extra wheels. That would have probably been quite a smart idea, but instead, Aaron decided to add a counterweight. Now, this drone could always be re-equipped, or the front end could always be chopped off, and we could have this as a module that could be attached and unattached from it. So let's actually have a quick hop inside. Now, you see me driving this thing to actually weld different bits up, and as you know, it does drive and handle quite well unless you get to a tilt, and then the resources in the edge of that tip can cause some serious damage. But from a welding perspective, it does everything we need it to do without too many of the fancy bells and whistles. And it's also got two little turrets on the side, so if you are welding up and someone decides to come over, you can defend yourself in one way or another. So let's hit the landing brakes on that thing. Hopefully it stops. There we go. Now, next up, you're probably getting very familiar with these creations. This one is a Muffins. It's probably one of the thousands of small drone ships that is used either as a welder, grinder, or alternatively a drill ship, and it's as simple to fix. Simply the items are just affixed to the front, the cargo container stores the resources in the center, and the seat is on top. Pavel's design for this is just really fast, really effective. It's everything you need. They do get destroyed quite easily, but they are very quick to put back together, and it has a lot of power to it. These little drones can lift up small ships if necessary, and especially rovers like mine that have a tendency to flip over, they can be picked up, moved around very easy with. So a great little design, this one, and something that will definitely not leave the fleet of drones. Now, I almost missed it out. This is, of course, the V-Welder. The V-Welder has had so many different configurations by BB, but this is probably the best one. Underneath, we've got this little protective skirt that protects the welders down here themselves, and it allows us to weld up ships extremely quickly. And you can see the storage devices up here on top feeding all them welders, and of course it has a merge block here, so it can be detached, and this thrust pack then can be used for lifting rovers, picking different items up, or even switching out for a grinder attachment or alternative drills as well. Very nice design indeed, and this one's definitely going to stay within the drone fleet. And as you know, we like to kind of affect different designs. We take our designs in different directions. So these are our small combat rover variants. I've covered my particular variant quite a lot, but having a look over, this is the Gatling Gun Variant, the one I prefer to use. We've got the two mini turrets on the top, the two Gatling turrets on the side, and a Gatling turret at the front as backup. And this is a completely armored shell, and it's pretty simple. I've shown you this in a separate video. If you want to check that out, I'll have a link to that in the description. But let's move on a little bit further. So next up, we have Finch's rover. Now, Finch wanted to do a Rodney Mark II. If you'd watched the early series, Rodney literally had this big cannon on, and it destroyed some of Jack's ships on a stealthy recon mission. Now, this is a little bit of an upgrade with the hover pack mod that we've got on the server, and it lovely glides itself across the ground. And also on the side, we have these two Mark I batteries, and since it's a hover vehicle, we can actually adjust the angle and actually aim these guys up and down that we wouldn't be able to do if we had a rover. We've also got the Gatling guns on the front there, so we can have a bit of suppressive firepower. Very, very nice indeed, and especially with that 300mm cannon on top, this thing is definitely going to really scare some of Jack's larger units, just because it's got so much firepower in such a compact package. And if we actually inspect the armor here itself, you can actually see we've still got light armor blocks here, so it can and probably will get destroyed quite quickly, but if we can deal out that firepower before it does it, like it did in the past, it's going to be very, very effective. Now over here we have ourselves Starbuck. This is Ryan's attempt at a rover, and that sounded a bit rude, an attempt. This is actually a really nice little rover, but you can actually see that we've got some rather interesting design characteristics going on here. Now, first off, if we actually have a look at the wheels of these things, each one of them is confined in one of these armored boxes, and I believe he started to upgrade this with more turrets, because I had a word with him in the last episode and I said it just needs some more firepower, because if one of the turrets gets taken out, we need a redundancy of a redundancy. Up at the front, we've also got two rocket launchers, two of the turrets. It's going to be a little bit harder to aim these guys due to them not having the hover ship sort of effect, but if it's right in front of them, he can blast it away until his heart's content. So if we hop inside Starbucks here, and we take this guy for a drive. The first thing you'll notice is its turn circle is very, very smooth. It can move around and it can park in some of the places that you wouldn't expect a ship to actually be able to park in of this size. And what's also very useful about this guy is we actually have a bunker on the back. But before we get in there, I'll just show you its landing gears. So the idea of this is it can prop itself up after a battle, repair its wheels, and continue on its way. So we can lower that back down. We can hit our parking brake, make sure we don't roll away. And as we head around the back of this particular craft, you'll notice we've got the flak turrets that tend to turn rather slow, but they're not too bad indeed. And then we've got the seating area at the back, so we can actually hop in here and travel towards a target area. And you'll notice that there's these blast door lips around the edge here, so there is some protection offered to a member of the crew. And you can also tuck yourself in there if you wish to, and you wanted to fight yourself from inside the back. It'd be pretty cool to have a go off. Anyway, let's continue moving as our jetpack runs out of fuel. So the first rover that the drone team ever created was this guy, and in its previous sort of configuration it was almost indestructible. It could flip over, it could keep going, and now we added this giant turret on, more of a sort of a test bed, because we felt like we wanted a rover that could explore but also deal out some firepower. Now looking back at that, it was probably much easier just to add some smaller turrets, and it might revert itself back to the wheels on top variant just for survival aspect. But this guy isn't really a attack rover. He's designed as a mobile base and also some artillery firepower to support the other rovers. But this guy can roll himself around very nicely if he is powered up correctly. So you can see we've actually got some power issues currently with this rover, so I'm not going to really be able to take it for a spin, but you've seen it bounce around in the past. Now we're getting onto the interesting stuff. We've actually got ourselves this crazy creation. The thing I refer to as the OG floor cleaner, but this one's designed by BB. And if we actually have a look inside through the rear access port here, I'm not too sure if this is in a complete state that we can actually have a really nice drive around with it, because there was some modifications going on to it when we last had a look, but we can attempt to turn the power on. Okay, so you see that the wheels can be adjusted at the side. We've also got all these turrets all over the place, and we need to disengage the landing gear. So if we hit that, that unlocks that, and that retracts the landing gear up, so that you can see that landing gear in that section there is designed to basically keep this thing on the ground when necessary. And as soon as it retracts up like that, we can actually use the friction of our wheels to move ourselves around sideways. That, in my opinion, is very interesting, but I always think these sort of designs are a little bit risque. So let's decrease the friction and attempt to take this thing for a little bit of a drive if we can. So we've got the thrusters, we can move it across the ground, and it does seem more stable than you would think. So if I reduce the friction of the wheels even further down, you can see how I can hover around over the terrain. You just got to be careful with it. You've just got to understand the limitations. That I think BB really does understand the limitations of these wheels and how to maneuver it, because the way he was flipping it around in the episode. And also you can increase the friction like so to slow yourself down and maneuver the craft differently. It's a little bit difficult to get yourself used to. It's something that I really wouldn't want to pilot just because I don't know how to pilot it as well as the original creator. But this thing has such a high sort of profile, it'll be able to fire over a lot of the mounds, a lot of the sand dunes here, and deliver some pretty direct hit on Jack's forces if he decides to come down here. Anyway, let's reset this up. So we're just going to hit the landing gear, retract that piston back down, and get yourself back out. The interior is pretty sparse for the moment. You might spruce it up with some more seats, some more components, so that you can recharge your systems in there as well. So let's move over to the last rover. Now, as the drones like to do, they find a rover, they like it, and they mass produce it. And Pavel built herself the sort of Hedgehog. The Hedgehog design was built a long time ago for Earth, but it never really got completed. So let's go over this design particularly. Now, the first thing you'll notice is it's all heavy armor. And because of this thing, it makes it very, very heavy, but it means it can take a brunt. From the front of the ship, you'll notice there's a cockpit there, and you might be thinking that's going to get destroyed in seconds, but this is purely just a piloting cockpit. There's actually a backup inside. So you've got the camera underneath, camera on top, so backups are backups as usual. You've got two spotlights on the front, and you've got the armed protective skirt for the actual wheels here itself. So there is some protection going on, but the wheels can still maneuver as well as they need to. At the back, we have ourselves an airlock. So it's two doors, harder to get in, but there is other ways in through the gaps in the bottom, but most likely engineers will be crushed trying to get in through that particular access. We've got backup battery systems, as usual in Pavel's sort of designs. We've got interior turrets as well, in case if anyone tries to sneak aboard and hijack this thing, the turrets will mow them down. And then as we come to this section, we also have thrusters in here as well, just in case. It just helps you flip over or get you out of situations where you might have some issues. And you can see the spacing on them thrusters is very good indeed, because it's not going to burn any of the components. There's access to the front cockpit, and let's actually access the armoured cockpit. Now this can be remote controlled as well, so you could have a central hive one of these guys and then control them. Now the first thing you'll notice about this is the front two wheels turn, the rear wheels do not. So it has a limited turning circle, and it just need a little bit of adjustment and a little bit of power to get this thing going. But once it's going, it is pretty hard to stop it. But the whole idea of this is just a massive amount of firepower on a rolling chassis like this. So you can see we've got the 8 wheels in total. We've got a good bit of off-road capability, and once we get this thing up to speed, it's very stable, it's very flat, it's hard to roll it over. And something with a lot of rovers is, if I yank this into a tight turn, you can see how he's wide up the wheels. It's hard even at higher speed for me to try to roll this guy over. Yes, the turning circle is much wider than any other rover, but the thing is, the whole idea is to have these in a larger sort of formation. So let's increase this speed and maneuver it around back over to the base. I don't want to take us over to the base because there's a few things new that have been built that I don't want to spoil for the next episode. So to wrap this up, I hope you enjoyed a quick look at some of the drone factions new vehicles that we've been working really hard to produce to a high standard. Hope you like this, and I will see you next time.